the first one to pass out homework and collect papers. And I would put my homework at the very bottom. So after she graded them and got to the last one, I would leave her a note that said, "Job well done." One day, Miss Watson said, "Antonio, can you write some encouraging words on the blackboard for us?" And she had marked out a section in the bottom left-hand corner. So I went up to the blackboard and I wrote things like, "Have a nice day," or things a third grader might say. And then I wanted to get a little more creative, and I wanted to send her secret messages, so the poetic person came out of me. So I wrote things like, "Roses are red, daisies are yellow, try not to hate, because love is more mellow." One day, Miss Watson came to class with a guest, and she said, "Class, this is Mr. Van Hoven, and on a week from Saturday, Mr. Van Hoven and I will be getting married, and you're all invited to the wedding." Of course, I looked at Mr. Van Hoven with contempt. He was stealing my girlfriend. And so on Saturday, it was June 19th, 1970, I went to St. Rita's Church in Queens, New York to witness what I thought would be a sad event, but was just another expression of Miss Wasserman's love. I watched as she walked down the aisle in her beautiful white wedding gown, and she winked at me as she passed by. As I listened very intently as the priest, they exchanged vows and the priest announced them man and wife. And in the reception line, she saw me coming down the reception line. She whispered something to Mr. Van Hoven. And as I approached him, she gave me a hug and kiss, and Mr. Van Hoven bent down and he said, "I'll take real good care of her for you." And I said, "Good." So when I got to class Monday, it no longer said Miss Wasserman on the blackboard, but it said Mrs. Van Hoven. And I had to get used to that, because not only did my girlfriend gone, now she had a different name, and I have to adjust to all that. But she was very attentive to me. She allowed me to continue to write on the blackboard, and so I would write things like, "Good things come to those who wait." One day, Miss Van Hoven announced that she was leaving, and her and Mr. Van Hoven were moving to California. And so she left, and to replace her was Miss Epstein. Now, Miss Epstein was a little older teacher and wasn't too down with my creative side. So I went up to the blackboard to write something, and she said, "Antonio, you cannot write on the blackboard." And I ignored her because I was distraught. Now Miss Wasserman's gone, and Miss Van Hoven, I was in a traumatic state. And so I went up to the blackboard and I disobeyed her, and I wrote on the blackboard anyway. What I did was write Miss Wasserman's name. And as punishment, true story, Miss Epstein made me write 100 times on the blackboard that I would not write on the blackboard. So this piece is dedicated to Miss Wasserman, who is now Miss Van Hoven, who allowed me to write on the blackboard, and to Miss Epstein, who did not let me write on the blackboard. So now, let me see if I can do this here. I write to delight. I write to delight using words to unite. I write to delight using words to unite, using words to fight. I write to delight using words to unite, using words to fight, whether happy or uptight. I write to delight using words to unite, using words to fight, whether happy or tight, sometimes in the day, sometimes at night. I write to delight using words to unite, using words to fight, whether happy or uptight, to express myself and shed light, sometimes in the day, sometimes at night, using words that are subtle and some that bite. I write to delight using words to unite, using words to fight, whether happy or uptight, to express myself and shed light, sometimes in the day, sometimes at night, using words that are subtle, some that bite, because some words have power and some are just alright. I write to delight using words to unite, using words to fight, whether happy or uptight, to express myself and shed light, sometimes in the day, sometimes at night, using words that are subtle and some that bite, because some words have power and some are just alright. Putting words together clever, but that by themselves may be trite. When I write about dead things, my writing brings them back to height. I write about sad things and also things that are blight. When things are at their lowest point, my writings bring them back to height. is you is or is you ain't may be wrong, but it's ebonically right. So that's why I write. Thank you. So because Ms. Watchman has stifled my writing, I believe I'm a writer today because of that. This is a situation where I was taught by children. After becoming the Poet Laureate, I went to the Harrison Academy in Lakewood, Washington, and there was Jody, the current Poet Laureate, Joey Edmonds. She was having a class called A Week Without Walls. And in this classroom, she had children from 5th grade to 12th grade in one class, and she was teaching them poetry. So she invited me to come speak to them. So I came to the class, and I said, I was talking to them, giving them a presentation, and I said, you know, I just became the Poet Laureate, and I want to write a piece about becoming the Poet Laureate, but I'm having a hard time coming up with words that rhyme with laureate. So being the geniuses that they are, they started giving me words and shouting out words. There was a young lady by the name of Ashley, and I had her writing down the words. So every time during my presentation, they would come up with a word that rhymed with laureate, and Ashley would copy it down. So I took the words that they wrote, and I wrote a poem for them, and it goes, once upon a time, in the land of Hilltopia, the people lived in harmony with urban graces, all shapes and sizes, all types of faces, who traveled from long distances, from all sorts of places. In the center of Hilltopia sat a well that contained all the letters of the alphabet. People would come and draw from this well, and time after time, the well would reveal exactly what was on their minds. And every day, right about sunset, drawn to the well, as if by a magnet, would arrive a young man the well described as a poet. People would gather around the well to hear what words the poet would spell. Sensing the poet's presence, the well would swell, bringing forth vowels and consonants, pronouns, adjectives, and proverbs. Some say they could see, others say they just heard, as the poet combined letters into a combination of words. This at a time when there was no technology, no internet. The poet told of adventures that people would not soon forget, for he is the reason for Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, for all of Browning's Portuguese sonnets. He held the clues that Langston Hughes used, the poet's muse, the writer's tool. You see, the poet was one of the few who knew that the well could not only read your mind, but also what you view. So looking out into the crowd, he fixed his eyes on a stranger, and in a poetic fashion, he said, you, yes you, your name is Harriet. You have a pet, a ferret, affectionately named Jinglefett. You work at a clothing outlet where you wear stockings made of fishnet and a hairnet over your pink barrettes. You drive a red Corvette, love playing the clarinet, and you love entertaining children with your Muppets and your marionette puppets. You have a boyfriend named Corbett who cut his hair into a mullet, which he now regrets. You love eating omelets made with raisinets, but hate the towelettes because they leave your hands soaking wet. But don't you fret, Harriet. People were amazed when they never saw the well used like this. This, they said, was truly a wordsmith. So from that day forward, and in the stone of the well it was set, the young man was now known as the Poet Laureate. Thank you. Yeah, that was an amazing day, those children. And I still have the piece of paper where they wrote, I think Ashley was like in 5th grade. So in her 5th grade writing, the words laureate and internet and pet and ferret, they all over this little paper. I kept it so to remind me. And it was amazing when I came back and demonstrated how they could, you know, use their imagination to create stories. And poetry it's been a lifesaver for me. At 4-H, I've been researching, guys. This is amazing, amazing organization. With the pledge, I read the pledge, and I listened to you guys do the pledge, which was great. And so I wrote a poem kind of around that. And here it goes. It says, I pledge my head to larger service. I'm sorry. 4H, head, heart, hands, and health. The revolution of responsibility. I pledge my head to clearer thinking. With a healthy dose of self-esteem, you're the most valuable human being this earth has ever seen. Since before birth, equipped with an innate ability of self-worth, compassion everlasting infinite as time itself, I would like to encourage you to write yourself a love poem. With affirmations, affirm your brilliance, confirm your, let me start that again. I would like to encourage you to write your own self a love poem. With affirmations, write down all the things that confirm your brilliance. Skills and abilities beyond measure, you are a treasure to the world. You are the painter and the painting, the oyster and the pearl. Pledge your heart to greater loyalty. You see, you and I, we are one. And I am one with all of you, too. When your mood is blue, that hue colors my world. For we live interdependently, as with no elbows. Our arms cannot bend, only extend to give. Harmoniously we live. Our spirits do not clash. Our bodies do not crash. Collaboratively, with no fear, we adhere. I pledge my hands to larger service. Such is the case at Washington State University, Wazoo, a 4H institution of higher learning. Never in the habit of merely taking up space, we have transformed the world from this little corner of the planet we call our place. Within bioregional biorhythms, that space takes place in our front yard, our street, our block, down at the old vacant lot, where wetlands become textbooks in communities where classrooms lie. We listen as our landscapes talk, as powerful tree roots push up through concrete sidewalks, demanding to be seen. Dendrochronologically recording the soundtrack of young lives, so I pledge my help to better living, because I know that will affect my physical, social, and emotional well-being. I'm capable of growing my own food in order to know what I am eating. I am a living, breathing, culture-changing 4-H'er in the community I am leading. Through healthy choices, I do more than just exist. Because I am a leader, I do more than just cope. I am making uncommon commitments because I have the audacity to do more than just hope. Thank you. It's been definitely a pleasure to be here. Those of you who are teaching young people and have a big responsibility. I read a book once, Other People's Children, and in it, it described how the student feels you think about them, how the student, how do I say that? How the student feels the way you think about them will affect your teaching, right? It will affect the way they learn from you. Because I had an instance where I had a teacher who wasn't my favorite teacher, and I wasn't her favorite student. And that affected my learning from her and her teaching me. So it's so important the roles you guys play as volunteers that are teaching young people. In teaching poetry, I have a whole lot of stuff I use to encourage them to write. And a lot of people ask me about coming out with a CD with my poetry, and I've been leaning more towards just keeping it in print. Because I want young people to read and not get so caught up in the technology and download my poems and listen to them. I want them to read them, to experience them, to feel them, to read them in the way they would read it, and to put their own emotion and feeling into it instead of adopting mine. And as a young person, I used to do a lot of rap, and with of course the beat, you know. I was stuck on that, right? That beat, right? I was stuck on that, but I teach a class now, young people, to free themselves from the beat and to create their own rhythm with their own words and their own emotion. And it's been pretty successful in getting young people away from the beat And I tell them, once you take away the beat, your words are the only